You ever have someone so convinced of their own power that they forget who they're dealing with? That's exactly what happened the day my so-called HOA president decided my porch swing wasn't up to her standards. What she didn't know, what she couldn't even imagine, was that I'm not just another homeowner in this neighborhood. I'm the man who built every brick, paved every road, and signed every deed she thinks she controls. It started on a warm Saturday morning. My wife and I were enjoying coffee on the front porch, rocking gently on the swing I installed years ago. It wasn't anything fancy, just cedar wood, handmade, sturdy enough to last generations. To me, it wasn't just a swing. It was a memory of long nights spent working with my father, who taught me how to craft things with my hands. To her, though, it was an unsanctioned modification. Patricia, though everyone secretly called her Karen, marched up my driveway with a clipboard tucked under her arm, like it was a badge of honor. She didn't even greet me. She pointed straight at the swing and said, "That's a violation. You'll be fined $250 unless it's removed within 48 hours. I set my coffee down and just looked at her, biting back a grin. My wife whispered, "Don't start," but I couldn't help myself. Violation of what exactly? I asked. She flipped through her pages like she was Judge Judy about to hand down a sentence. Section 14B of the HOA guidelines. No unapproved exterior additions. Now I could have explained right then and there. I could have told her that the entire HOA existed because I, the developer, signed it into being years ago. That technically, she was barking at the man who gave her the authority in the first place. But something about her smugness made me pause. Let her dig her own hole, I thought. I leaned back on the swing and let it creak. "Well, Patricia, I'll have to look into that." Her eyes lit up, mistaking my calm for submission. She scribbled something on her pad and strutted away, no doubt already planning the smug email she'd send to the board. My wife shook her head. "You're enjoying this too much," and she was right, because Patricia had no idea the storm she had just unleashed. You don't fine the man who built the entire neighborhood. You don't tell the architect of the HOA what he can hang on his porch. But she was about to find out, hard and fast. By Monday morning, the fine notice was taped to my door in bold red letters, as if Patricia thought I'd be too scared to argue. My wife rolled her eyes when she saw it. "You're not really going to let her keep this up, are you?" she asked. I smiled. "Oh no, this is going to be fun." See, Patricia had only lived here for 3 years. She moved in after her husband's promotion, and quickly positioned herself as the savior of the neighborhood, insisting she'd whip everyone into shape with stricter rules. The truth was, most neighbors couldn't stand her, but they kept quiet, fearing her endless threats of fines. What she didn't know was that when I built this community 15 years ago, I kept certain rights for myself. Every HOA contract, every rule, every amendment, my signature sat at the bottom. And more importantly, there was a clause that gave me final say on property guidelines. Patricia might have been the loudest voice in the meetings, but legally, she was standing on sand. Still, I wasn't going to waste my time with a courtroom showdown just yet. I had a better plan. Show Patricia that respect is earned, not demanded. That evening, I took a stroll around the neighborhood. It didn't take long to spot half a dozen violations Patricia had ignored. Her best friend's yard had a garden gnome army lined up like a plastic militia. Another house had wind chimes so loud they could wake the dead. And Patricia's own backyard? She had an above-ground pool squeezed so close to the fence it practically leaned on it. Something strictly against HOA guidelines. I chuckled to myself. If Patricia wanted to play rule enforcer, then maybe it was time she got a taste of her own medicine. The next day, I called for a special HOA board meeting. When Patricia arrived, she carried herself like a queen entering her throne room. Clipboard, pen, self-satisfied smirk. The whole package. She sat at the head of the table and said, "Let's begin. First on the agenda, enforcing porch swing compliance." I cleared my throat. "Actually, Patricia, I added a few items to the agenda myself." She froze. "You added items?" "Of course," I said casually, pulling out a folder thick with documents. "As the neighborhood's developer and original signer of the HOA charter, I have that right. Shall we review your pool first? Or your friend's gnome collection?" The room went silent. Patricia's face drained of color. The smug queen had just been knocked off her throne, and this was only the beginning. Patricia's pen slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the table. The other board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, clearly torn between fear of her wrath and curiosity about what I had just revealed. "What do you mean you have that right?" she asked, her voice sharper than glass. I leaned forward and slid the documents across the table. Page 3, Section 9. Developer retains authority to review, amend, and override HOA restrictions at his discretion. Her eyes darted over the page, scanning desperately. She knew it was real. The stamp, the notary signature, my name, everything was official. She looked up flustered. Why haven't you mentioned this before? Because, I said, folding my hands calmly, I never cared to meddle. I believed this community could govern itself responsibly. Clearly I was wrong. A murmur rippled across the room. One board member, an older gentleman named Frank, finally spoke up. So you're saying Patricia's fines don't actually hold weight? Correct, I replied, unless I approve them, which I don't. The tension in the room snapped like a rubber band. Some board members hid smiles behind their hands. Others looked downright relieved, like prisoners hearing the cell door click open. Patricia, though, was seething. Her face went crimson as she slammed her clipboard shut. You can't just embarrass me in front of everyone, she hissed. Oh, Patricia, I said with a grin. You've been embarrassing yourself since the day you decided to fine me for my porch swing. Her jaw clenched, and she stormed out of the meeting, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. The room erupted into laughter. After the meeting, neighbors approached me one by one. Thank you, Frank said, shaking my hand. We've all been dealing with her nonsense for too long. Another woman added, she fined me last month for having a pumpkin on my porch after Halloween. A pumpkin! I assured them things were about to change. The HOA wasn't meant to be a weapon. It was supposed to protect the value of the neighborhood, not choke the joy out of it. And if Patricia thought she could bully her way into control, she was about to face reality. That evening, I sat back on my porch swing with my wife. She handed me a glass of iced tea and smirked. So what's next? Gonna evict the queen from her castle? I chuckled. Something like that. But trust me, she's not done yet. People like Patricia never back down quietly. And I was right. Her next move would shock everyone. I didn't have to wait long for Patricia's counterattack. By Thursday, she was at it again. This time handing out flyers door to door, calling for my removal from HOA involvement. She painted me as some tyrant, twisting the truth to make it seem like I was abusing power. The irony was delicious. The woman who'd fined kids for chalk, drawings on the sidewalk, was suddenly crying about me being controlling. But Patricia made one fatal mistake. She underestimated how much the neighborhood had grown tired of her antics. That weekend, the board held an open community meeting to address Patricia's accusations. She marched in, chin high, waving her flyers like evidence in a courtroom. This man has undermined the HOA. He's using loopholes to excuse his violations and attack others. I stood calmly and let her rant. The more she talked, the more the crowd shifted. Neighbors whispered, rolled their eyes, even chuckled. Finally, when she paused for breath, I stepped forward. Let me be clear, I began. I didn't build this neighborhood to police porch swings, pumpkins, or garden gnomes. I built it for families to enjoy. And Patricia, while you've spent years handing out fines, you forgot the most important rule. This community belongs to the people who live here, not the person with the loudest clipboard. I opened the folder again and displayed the original HOA charter for everyone to see. Yes, I kept developer rights, but I never wanted to use them, until Patricia left me no choice. If the community believes she represents their best interests, I'll step aside. But if you've had enough of her, you now have the power to vote. The room erupted into applause. Neighbors who'd stayed silent for years finally spoke up. Stories poured out of unjust fines, harassment, and Patricia's double standards. When the vote was called, it wasn't even close. Patricia was stripped of her HOA presidency on the spot. She stood frozen, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, before storming out yet again. This time, though, no one followed her. Afterward, I walked home with my wife, the evening sun casting a warm glow over the neighborhood I had once built with pride. I sat on my porch swing, took a deep breath, and smiled. You know, my wife said, leaning against the railing, that swing caused a lot of trouble. I grinned. Maybe, but it also reminded this neighborhood who really holds the foundation together. And as the swing creaked gently beneath me, I knew one thing for sure. Patricia's reign was over, and peace had finally returned. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next crazy HOA Karen showdown.